Mike dropped your name. He mentioned that you could help. And I was like, he did what? And I was like, hell yeah, I'm super down. So my parents are originally from Iraq. During the Gulf War, we got displaced to Saudi Arabia. We lived in this refugee camp. My dad would wait in line for water. Bombs would be raining ahead. It's a pretty terrible experience. But the one light in it was me being born. And so my dad at the time knew that he had to get out of this refugee camp. He would write letters to the US Embassy. So by a miracle, we ended up getting sponsored and we moved to Dayton, Ohio. And so once we got to Dayton, Ohio, I noticed that we didn't have a lot. And I suspected we were poor. So I remember asking my mom if we were poor. And she was like, we have more than most people. So I knew we were poor. So I ended up going to school, and it was in the 7th grade that my English teacher, Miss Toll, pulled me to the side after class. She was like, you have a great gift for writing. I want you to join this program we have after school called Power of the Pen. And I think that was the first time that anybody had ever told me that I was good at something. I had always tried out for the basketball team or any other sport, and I would never make the team because I just wasn't good. And so this gave me a sense of pride because I finally felt like I was good at something. So I ended up doing Power of the Pen. I realized that I really like writing. And so I ended up going to high school, and I had an English teacher at the time, Miss Quinlan. She also told me that I had a gift for writing. But then she pulled me to the side once and she was like, you don't apply yourself at all, but you're a good writer. And that kind of woke me up. I realized like I was good at something, but I wasn't trying. And I kind of just remembered like my dad would always tell us like, look, you're going to have to work harder than other people because we don't have what most people have. So I ended up going to college at Wright State University. I was originally a finance major, but I was like, this is way too hard. I want to focus on being a writer. And then we didn't have journalism, so I did communications. And more importantly, I was writing poetry at the time. I started thinking about what careers I wanted to do as a writer. And the first idea I had in my head was, I want to be a rapper. Good money, benefits. So I would make music during my time in college. I would also find singers and rappers who happened to show up to Dayton, Ohio, and I would just give them my demo. And I developed a knack for sneaking into places or sneaking into concerts. I remember sneaking into like a weekend concert, seeing J. Cole, a bunch of different artists, and I would always just say, hey, I'm Fanny, I make music. Could you please listen to my album? The music was pretty bad. I think I just didn't have enough reps in at making music. I essentially did that all throughout college. Nothing ever happened with music at the time. And so I had talked to my mom and I was like, you know what? I really want to move to LA. I think LA is the move. I feel like anyone who's chasing a dream ends up going to LA or New York. And that's kind of what I'd seen from the movies. And so I was like, I'm just going to go to LA. I ended up packing my stuff into my car. I drove about 7 hours to St. Louis, Missouri before I realized it was just a terrible idea. I didn't have that much money at the time. I think like when I got there, some things really started hitting me and I was like, this is actually a terrible move. So instead of continuing to drive there, I just turned back around. And so that was really demoralizing because I had just told my friends I was leaving and then I was back within a weekend. So yeah, I just ended up coming back. I lived with my parents. I knew I really wanted to be an artist still and I wanted to work in the music industry, but obviously there's no music industry in Ohio. So I decided to get creative and I told myself what I would do is I would find an artist and instead of giving them my demo, I would ask if I could work for them. So I looked around and I noticed that Mike Posner was going to be in Columbus, Ohio, which is about an hour away. And I decided that I would just show up and see if I could ask him for a job or an internship. My brother and I head down there and Mike does a show in a park in Columbus. It was actually called a Ninja Show where he was doing this thing where he would go around and he would play at different parks across the US and then he would just tweet out he was at a park and then you would show up. You could watch him perform. So I ended up seeing him at Goodell Park. Got done. I decided I was like, look, I'm going to wait in line and then I'm going to ask him for a job. And I knew I needed to be the last person because I wanted to have as much time as I could to talk to him. So I ended up waiting in line and I was like, yo, Mike, I'm Fanny. I want to work for you and I'll do it better than anyone you currently employ and I'll do it for free. And he just looked at me and he was like, nah, man, I can't do that, but I can give you a selfie if you want. And I was like, nope, don't want a selfie. You want a job. He was like, sorry, man. And I was like, well, just take my email, like just in case you change your mind. Zach and I, my brother, we ended up going to dinner that night somewhere. And I was just like, man, like if this would have worked out, that'd have been so sick. So we were just like, yeah, like, you know, we tried, it didn't happen, all good. But then as we're driving back, we got an email from Mike's manager and he was like, yo, Mike dropped your name. He mentioned that you could help. And I was like, he did what? And I was like, hell yeah, I'm super down. Like, whatever you guys need me to do, I'll do it. And I think they just sent me like BS work. You know, it was just like, not BS work, but it wasn't anything like glamorous. It was just like, take some of these emails that we have, put them in a spreadsheet in Excel and like send them back to us. And so I was like, okay, bet. Like, I'm going to do this. I'll send them back to you. And I would just do it really quickly. Like, Mike would give me a task to do 1 a.m. my time, and I would just turn it around by like 4 a.m. And I was like, that's my plan. I'm just going to do everything he says really quickly. I pretty much did that for like 5 months. He would just send me random tasks. And I don't even think he knew my name. He would just use my initials. Be like, yo, hey, can you do this for me? And I'm just like, blah, blah, blah. I'm the Kermit typing gif. I'm like, hell yeah, bro, for sure. So I did that for 5 months. Man, I still didn't have a job. And my dad was like, listen, I'm proud of you, but you need to make money. You're an adult. And it was just like a really nice way of him telling me, go find a job. And so I remember calling Mike and I was like, dude, I would love to be on your team. This would be a dream come true. And what he said kind of really demoralized me at the time, not because of what he said, but just the circumstance of the situation. He was currently being shelved by his label, and shelved is a term in music where if you have an album, the label doesn't deem it to be profitable enough. And so they essentially put it on a hypothetical shelf and it doesn't come out. And so he was telling me, you know, his career was kind of stalled. And so he was just cutting down his team. I remember being really hurt at the time. I was like, man, I thought I had finally broken through and it didn't work out. So I just like took a regular job. I was working at this company in Dayton. All the while, there was a song that Mike had released over the summer called I Took a Pill in Ibiza, the acoustic record. It had gotten remixed into an EDM record and it started doing really well in Europe. And so his career was slowly starting to pick back up again. And I was helping with the marketing. Something really cool happened where the song ended up blowing up. I remember being at my job, like my 9 to 5, and hearing it on the radio. And I'm like, yo, this is the song. And so what ended up happening was because I had worked for Mike, you know, and done such a good job for free during that time, he decided to hire me to be head of digital media for him. And that was my first job out of college. It was incredible. It was like everything that I ever dreamed of. I was just doing things and being with people that I had only seen on TV. And I was this kid from this little small town in Ohio. And it was just incredible. And I think it was a lot for me at the time. When you're around somebody prominent, man, there's like an ugly side that comes to that. I started having people treat me different because I was around somebody who was famous. And so I really dealt with a lot of people trying to use me or trying to get me to do certain things, which was really hard for me at the time because I didn't really know what was authentic and what wasn't. And it really opened my eyes because here I am being a person who works for the person experiencing this. So I was like, man, I wonder how it feels to be Mike. Your whole world just kind of changes around you. And it was really strange for me. I was just battling like anxiety and depression at the time. My own music career had taken a backseat because I was so focused on Mike's career. And I had told Mike that I made music. He would give me tips and pointers. He was just like a great boss and even better friend. I ended up working for him for 3 years and some change. And I was remote at the time. I was still in Ohio, and I would travel here and there, and it was just incredible. But I think what I was doing was I was overworking myself. I was extremely, extremely overworked due to my own need to wanting to be the best. And I just kind of stopped taking care of myself. I stopped working on my own music and I kind of lost sight of who I was. The tough part is when you're around somebody famous, you feel kind of famous. And that's really tough because your self-worth is attached to them. And my self-worth was very much attached to him. I would notice it whenever I would meet people. That was really hard for me to deal with. I think I was just like, who am I as a person? Because I know without this thing, people probably wouldn't like me. And after 3.5 years, I ended up calling him and I was like, man, I'm quitting at the end of the month and I can't do it. And he was just really gracious. He was just like asking me questions. And I think for a long time after I quit working for him, I felt this guilt for like quitting on him. And I think maybe 3 years ago or 2 years ago, I had texted him and I sent him a voice note and I was like, I'm sorry, I quit on you, bro. He's like, man, you didn't quit on me, bro. Like you went and you chased like your dream and you had something else you wanted to do. And I'm really proud of you. And so I ended up leaving working for him and I decided that I was going to do something for myself. And I was like, I'm going to backpack Europe because I had really never left Ohio. Like I had been to maybe Detroit or, you know, these like neighboring cities, but I had never actually like left. And so I bought a plane ticket into Amsterdam and I would just go to these different places along the way. Like I flew from Amsterdam to, I think, Paris and then Paris to Barcelona. And I was just like meeting people and like really just kind of discovering who I was as a person, which was just incredible. I came back and I was like, all good. Like I worked for Mike Posner, I'll find a job. And that was not the case. It was really hard for me to find a job. And I think what I underestimated was that a lot of people that I was competing with also worked for these big companies or these big artists. So the competition was a lot higher now. So time was running out. I couldn't really find a job. And my dad's like, you're unemployed again. Like go find a job. And so I went back to the same company that I worked for before I left working for Mike, which was like really hard for me, like psychologically, because I felt like I had made it when I left working for this 9 to 5. And then here I am back at it. And so I ended up taking a job in Columbus, which is like an hour away. And yeah, I just like lived in Columbus. I worked at this call center and I would just send my resume out to places. And I was just like, I'm just going to work in the creative field. I knew I didn't want to work in music anymore. And I would just apply to all these places and I wouldn't get hired. And after like 2.5 years, I ended up getting a job here out in Portland doing creative work, which is awesome because I get paid to be creative, which I'm like, hell yeah. Like this was my dream growing up. Like I get paid to write. I guess I like lost sight of like my dream to become an artist. I still want to do all these things and I want to chase this dream and this goal that I have. And so that's why I started this YouTube channel. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go all in. And so I made my first vlog, which was terrifying, but I'm so happy that I did it. And I just dropped an album, which was great. And so I'm going to continue to try to make videos about things that inspire me and hopefully see if I can turn this into a career. If you made it this far in the video, I appreciate it. Thank you guys for listening. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments and I'll try to do my best to answer them. Peace.